Welcome to the Love of the Star podcast. I am Bobby Bell, Dallas Cowboys insider for 105.3 The Fan in Dallas, joined as always by former Super Bowl winning NFL scout Brian Broaddus. He is now the co-host of the G-Bag Nation 2 to 7 p.m. Central, Monday through Friday on 105.3 The Fan in Dallas. He is also the Dallas Cowboys Radio Network pre- and post-game co-host. And Brian, when we were leaving things off the other night, the Jets and the Bills were about to kick off. And we were talking a lot about, we'll find out some stuff about the Jets and the Bills tonight. We'll get to preview Aaron Rodgers a little bit, see where he is. And it was just 4 snaps. That's all he made it into the 2023
and then snap.
season.
Yeah, 4 snaps and snap.
Yeah, and then it was the snap of the Achilles.
Yeah.
And he is out for the year now. Zach Wilson is in his place.
Yeah.
Mike McCarthy was asked about it at his press conference on Wednesday, as we record this on Wednesday night. And, like everybody, Jerry Jones included on Tuesday, talking about how much they feel for Aaron Rodgers, how disappointing it is. So the Cowboys will get a look at Zach Wilson in this game coming up on Sunday. Just some of your general thoughts, I guess, on the Rodgers situation and now Wilson having to step in and us getting robbed of the McCarthy-Rodgers showdown.
Well, I'll tell you what, it's terrible news for the New York Jets, and it's sometimes you get to a point where you're trying your best after last year what they were dealing with their lack of offense, and it was Zach Wilson, the struggles that he had as a young quarterback, and it's one of those things where you feel like if you're the Jets, you just can't catch a break with your roster, and you look at it as you lost those games last year. There were some tough games. You said, okay, we're going to make a commitment here. We busted. Well, I don't know if we busted yet. When I say the word bust for Zach Wilson, we'll see how he plays this year. Maybe learning under Aaron Rodgers this summer, maybe it helped him with some professionalism. Maybe it helped him with preparation. Maybe it helped him, kind of have a better understanding of how he needs to go about, his job. And, last year there were some comments coming out of New York that seemed very selfish, very, it's not my problem kind of a thing. And, here you are, you got a defense that's finding ways to, you're losing games 10-6 and, crazy ways to lose. But the fact that you spent the second overall pick, it doesn't look good. And then you give up a potential first-round pick, which now will be a second-round pick for Aaron Rodgers. And then all the momentum that you had built going into the season, with Aaron Rodgers as your quarterback, and now that's completely gone by the wayside. And now there's no guarantee that Aaron Rodgers will even be back, at 39 years old, and a very difficult injury to have to deal with and come back from. And we've seen guys like Dan Marino and others that have tried. It just doesn't look as pretty. The mobility. What's the one thing that Aaron Rodgers is really good at? The mobility, the ability to move in the pocket, the ability to the elusiveness that he has. But if you're the Jets, you just have to, what did we do wrong here? What did we do that made somebody mad to where we're not, we're dealing with, now you have to go back and you have to, put your arm around Zach Wilson and hug him and tell him, man, hey, all these things that, we loved about Aaron Rodgers, and we're sorry that, that we were so mean to you, but you're our guy now. We thought about you as the second overall pick, and you need to find a way to go make some plays for us. And kind of a rough situation all around. But man, it's a good team. I mean, it's a good team, especially on defense. It's a good team, and I think their defense once again will hold them in a lot of games. And maybe Zach Wilson has learned something from year 1 to year 2.
Yeah, and we'll dive into a more in-depth preview of what the Jets look like this year, what they have outside of just Aaron Rodgers, maybe what to expect from Zach Wilson in this game. But, some additional updates out of the Star on Wednesday. It's interesting. They had a walkthrough, so the injury report was just a projection of what their participation would have been if they were in a full practice. And you had Tyler Smith, DNP, Donovan Wilson, DNP, and then interesting addition there, it's Brandon Cooks with a knee issue, also DNP. Now, Mike McCarthy seemed a little bit cagey about it. He didn't seem terribly concerned, but he also, the way he does, he likes to conceal a lot. He doesn't like to tip off very much. And so it's a little murky what's going on with Cooks at this point, but I didn't sense overwhelming panic or anything like that. I didn't sense a real concern the same way that we have with some of these other injuries when we've heard him talk about them. Tomorrow will be a big day. Thursday will be a big day. When you guys are listening to this on Thursday, that's going to be a big day to see, okay, now that we're out here at practice and there's a real practice here, what is Brandon Cooks' level of participation? But Brian, is this, kind of knowing what you know about the Jets defense, which we'll dive into here in just a second, how important would it be for the Cowboys or for the Jets, I guess, on their side, if Brandon Cooks were to miss this game?
I think it would be huge for the Jets because I feel like that Brandon Cooks, he showed you something the other night in that football game. As a route runner, as an ability to finish. Where did Dak go on the fourth down play? He went to Brandon Cooks. Brandon Cooks was able to make a play. Brandon Cooks was able to draw a pass interference, for a big gain. Brandon Cooks is the type of guy that looked like to me when you were watching him in OTAs and the training camps and practices like that Dak Prescott was growing a rapport with him. That the ball that you throw it to Brandon Cooks, good things were going to happen. And so this is big for the Cowboys if in fact that Brandon Cooks will be limited in any single way. But I kind of feel like though that if this is one of those things that happened in week 6, week 7, you'd be kind of thinking, oh, it's a wear and tear. It's just him running a lot, him maybe taking a hit. But in week 2 and some of the things that have happened to Brandon Cooks, he's missed time throughout his career. Sure. At various points. And so but a lot of that has been maybe some soft tissue injury things that he's had to deal with. But yeah, this would be if Brandon Cooks wasn't a participant in this game, or it was very limited in the way that he participated, that would be a big, that would be something that I'm sure the Jets would be okay with. And the Cowboys on their other hand would be like, okay, how do we replace somebody that we know is going to battle? Not that the receivers won't battle, Sauce Gardner, sure. and others, there, but and they've got a really good secondary. I mean, if you really, as you break it down, so I just kind of feel like it would be a big loss if he wasn't part of what your game plan was.
Do you have Cooks ahead of Gallup at this point for this team?
Yes. Yeah, I do. And I even asked the question the other day on 105.3 The Fan on the G-Bag Nation is, do you anticipate Brandon Cooks even taking more reps away or more, not snaps, but more targets away from CeeDee Lamb? And just because of some of the things that, and my guys were, well, I kind of feel like though there's probably enough to go around, but I'm totally on board on what Brandon Cooks does. I think Brandon Cooks, I think the thing with Michael Gallup is, I think Michael Gallup is fine. I think he, the other day in the game, he had the one catch, and start the second half. I thought that was good. He's got that ability to make plays along the sidelines if necessary, but I think Brandon Cooks is for real. And so I hope he's healthy enough to play in this game this weekend.
Now, I mentioned there that Donovan Wilson, Tyler Smith, they were also DNP. What I thought was really interesting was, I don't know about you, Brian, but didn't you feel like heading into last week, the Giants game, that Tyler Smith was closer than Donovan Wilson was to playing in that Giants game? That's how I felt.
I think there's some manipulation going on. And I know it's a walk-through practice and projections and all that. I think
because McCarthy, just to clarify for anybody listening, McCarthy did say on Wednesday, said Wilson is ahead of Tyler Smith. Which I think is a change.
There's some gamesmanship going on there, and that's cool. That's cool. I have a feeling that both Wilson, and I really, just having an understanding about how I think Jerry Jones was not telling you guys. I think he was telling you guys the truth of how those guys were on the cusp of playing the other day. And I think that's the honest assessment right now. I think that's the honest assessment. And I wouldn't be surprised if we do see both Wilson and then also Smith maybe being incorporated into practice a little bit more tomorrow.
Yeah, and look, Chuma Edoga, we talked about him the other day. He
played well.
Pass. Yeah, he gets a passing grade there, which is all you can really ask for.
That's all you can ask right now. Yep.
With backup offensive linemen.
Yeah.
But I mean, how impactful do you think it is to get Tyler Smith back into the lineup? What kind of a jump is that from Edoga?
Well, the thing that Edoga I think the reason that Edoga played well the other day is because of the way that the Giants rushed their defensive tackles. I think that Edoga understands that he's a power player. He's, that fits more into his role of how he blocks. We saw him on the edge in space and having to deal with quickness and all that. That was a problem. And I think the Giants they were right in his wheelhouse with the way that he was able to handle their rush. It's a little different now when you start to talk about Quentin Jefferson and you start to talk about Quinnen Williams and the way that those guys rush, the way those inside guys rush the passer, and the way they play the run. They're players that are good on the move. They're good side to side, lateral players. They're quick up the field. They attack gaps. Sometimes you catch them on a slant, and they're able to kind of make some plays. So Jefferson and Williams both are going to be a little bit different than what the Cowboys faced against the Giants. And I kind of feel like that having Tyler Smith in there would probably make you a little bit better equipped to handle big inside guys that also have movement. Whereas
Smith's a good athlete with
where
power.
Edoga might not, where Edoga can handle a guy that will bull rush him, but can he handle the guy that's can make himself small and get through the hole like a Quinnen Williams can? Quinnen Williams can quickly get up the field, make himself a little small, and then get back in on the play and kind of get his shoulder underneath and stuff like that. So having Tyler Smith back in there would, I think, make a big difference for them.
We'll have more on those injuries when we talk to you guys again later this week. Fingers crossed as they enter this Thursday practice that you'll be able to see a little bit more involvement there. But like Brian pointed out, Jerry Jones told us on 105.3 The Fan this week that those guys were on the cusp.
I would take him to his word. I would take him to his word on that one. I really would.
Yeah. I think that's a reasonable expectation. You are listening to the Love of the Star podcast. The Love of the Star is an Odyssey podcast. You can find it on the Odyssey app or wherever you get your podcasts. All right, Brian. So you've referenced a little bit some of this Jets defense.
Yeah.
I think they're going to take up the majority of the time here for us as we kind of take a look ahead at the Jets and preview them a little bit. Let's quickly just kind of touch on a little bit of the aspects of the offense, which we don't know a ton about how it's going to look at this point because it's Zach Wilson in there.
Right.
Zach Wilson stepped in to a Aaron Rodgers game plan against the Bills the other night. And so we don't know if it's going to look exactly the same. Some of my just broad takeaways, and again, just kind of broad brushing this one a little bit until we understand a little bit more of the particulars with Wilson. I mean, everything you've heard about the Jets struggling to pass protect is absolutely true. That's an offensive line that has problems keeping their quarterback upright. There's going to be a lot of pressure up there. I think that what they have on the right side of the line with Becton and Vera Tucker, what I saw in week one were two guys who can run block really well, but I think there's some real vulnerability to the pass rush on that side. Whereas maybe on the other side of the line with a guy like Laken Tomlinson inside at guard, he feels a little bit better in pass protection than he does, run block. And it feels like he has trouble, getting things done in the run game. But offensive line, a question. They have talented players. Randall Cobb's still a savvy veteran. Garrett Wilson is a really impressive young receiver. Breece Hall, I mean, he looks like everything we expected he would be when he was coming out of Iowa State. They've got Dalvin Cook in there now, who has had a lot of success against the Cowboys throughout his career. And while I know what the narrative is around Zach Wilson, one of the other narratives surrounding him that people maybe don't, have in their consciousness as much because of all the criticism is the guy has ridiculous arm talent. And he will, in this game, it doesn't matter how good or bad he is. I promise you there will be 2 or 3 times during the game that you go, whoa, that was a throw. I mean, he does have the ability to wow you at times. It's just a matter of the consistency. But Brian, I do think that, if you've got questions at quarterback and you've got questions in the ability to pass protect, your offense is not likely to be one of the better ones in the league, despite some talent in the running game, some talent at the skill positions, and an offensive line that's not bad at run blocking.
Yeah, Bobby, I think you completely nailed what the Jets are overall. I think you highlighted the right players. I could see this. I don't know why the Jets would initially even come out and think about throwing the football unless they want to see, if Garrett Wilson can get going or somebody like that. But I just feel like that they are going to take Breece Hall, Dalvin Cook, Michael Carter, and they're going to try and do their very best to just pound out this Dallas defense and see if, in fact, that they can, can Dwayne Brown and Tomlinson and McGovern and Vera Tucker and Becton, can they find some footing? Can we get in 12 personnel, 13 personnel, and just try and really string Dallas out, create some natural gaps within the defense there. And just by alignment, and then try and run the ball up inside or get the ball to the outside. If you throw the ball or try to throw the ball against this Cowboy this Cowboy defense, you're putting yourself in harm's way. You really are putting yourself in the harm's way because they will find a way to break you down across the offensive line. But I just have a feeling that it's, there's going to be some second down, third down runs. There's going to be, if the thing that the real key for me in this game will be if the Cowboys offensively can get points, any points, make this Jet offense have to score along with you. Because the one thing they've proven with Zach Wilson at quarterback that it's difficult to do. And so as the Cowboys and maybe the Jets, if they have success running the ball, you do not get that many possessions in this game. But if you find a way to, when you're on offense, you find a way to score often, then all of a sudden the Jets can't stay in that game of just running the football. They just can't. So I think it's going to be really on the Cowboys offense to put a lot of pressure on Zach Wilson, and then and also have to deal in with Nathaniel Hackett, the play caller, to have to figure out it because you could see them just get really comfortable and like, okay, we got to run the ball, we can't expose our quarterback to hits, and this offensive line will give up some hits, but run blocking is a matter of coming off the ball. We saw the Giants have some success the first series of the game. And for the life of me, I don't know why in the second series of the game they threw the ball 3 straight times. Went 3 and out, got a sack. And from that point on, the game was pretty much, was starting to go downhill for them.
And then the third series, they came out and threw it 3 straight times.
I do not see the Jets doing that. I really don't. I see them getting in. When they throw the ball, they'll probably get in some 12, maybe even 13 personnel stuff and just try and through spacing, keep the Cowboys edge rushers wide. You get in 12 personnel, you put a tackle, a tight end, and a tight end over there again, a wing. Then all of a sudden, now you've removed one of the Cowboys edge rushers, Micah Parsons, whoever, you've removed him two full bodies from the ball. And maybe you don't have the ability to stay in front of him, but by spacing, you've kept him wide enough to where he can't rush or the ball's getting out quick before he even gets there. So I could see the Jets using alignment, 12 personnel, 13 personnel, and try and figure out ways to maybe scheme protection for their young quarterback.
Yeah, and that's not an exaggeration to say 13 personnel, Brian. I mean, you've got Jeremy Ruckert, Tyler Conklin, CJ Uzomah. You look at Ruckert is the third tight end. He played 18 snaps the other night.
Yeah.
And that's three guys, Uzomah, Conklin, and Ruckert there, who all three of those guys can block. They can get the job.
And they got a fullback, too. With this Nick Baldwin is his name, I believe, and they've got bodies, and I just feel like through alignment, and this is where Dan Quinn I think has to be a little bit creative and has to know what's about to happen, is that if you put Micah Parsons on the edge when they're in 12 or 13 personnel, he is not going to be right there like he normally is over the offensive tackle. He could be two gaps removed and now having to rush. I think that you'll probably see Micah Parsons be more in the middle, more like what we saw with him and Osa. And then we'll see if the Jets kind of can figure out, they're gonna slide protection to wherever Micah Parsons is. And how well that, maybe even covering these two guards will put these tackles on some one-on-one rushes too, or having to deal with some one-on-one rush. So there's a lot of things that you can do scheme-wise. They're going to try and get you scheme-wise on spacing. You need to make sure that they don't do that to you.
Yeah. Now let's take a look at this Jets defense, which is obviously the calling card here for this football team. They were a really good defense last year. Robert Saleh, of course, that is his MO, is on the defensive side of the ball. And, man, you watch the tape of this game against the Bills, and they're everything they've been sold to be. They are really, really good. And we can go a number of different ways with this. I want to start out here. The linebackers.
Yeah.
CJ Mosley and Quincy Williams, Quinnen Williams' brother.
Yeah.
And
big brother helping little brother out there on some stuff for sure. Yeah.
I know Quincy's reputation is not as one of the stud linebackers in the NFL, so it could have been a flash in the pan night, but man, the traits are there. That is a guy who he will shed blocks. He'll, cover a lot of ground to make plays. He's a sure tackler. And Quincy Williams was incredibly impressive on tape to me. And CJ Mosley, of course, a long-standing veteran, really savvy player, high IQ football player. Those linebackers right there for the Jets are really, really good. And I think we'll be able to do a lot to help neutralize some of the stuff the Cowboys maybe want to do in space with their backs. Maybe, take away some of these quick throws to tight ends. Those are two talented linebackers there.
Yeah, there were 17 tackles in this game between C.J. Mosley and Quincy Williams. And they are downhill players. They are good finishers. They're around the ball. The Jets play a scheme very similar to the 49ers. And Mike McCarthy was asked about it. They play their front really wide. There's some spacing. They call it like a wide nine is what they have. So to me, it's, I feel like that the Cowboys need to kind of have an idea about, okay, how can we attack them in this wide nine? And when we say nine, we mean those edges playing on the outside. As far as you can get to the outside is the nine hole, or so that wide nine is a wide spacing defense. But you've got a situation where you got linebackers that can friggin' run and get to the ball. So, even if you think you have spacing inside and attack, linebackers that are, if you could get second level blocks, you can have a chance to hit some plays. But if you don't, with that spacing, those linemen don't get there. Quinnen Williams, Quincy Williams, and also C.J. Mosley will go downhill and make some plays on you.
Yeah, and look, I mean, this is going to be you mentioned the wide 9 front. They do we can shift over to the defensive line here. They do a lot of different alignments
Yeah.
with the defensive line. They'll do some wide stuff. They'll run some under fronts. They'll and couple that with a wide 9 where guys like way outside.
Right.
They do a lot of.
You think you could pop runs inside on them, but then the way they react, they slant or they'll put themselves into position to make plays. Like I say, those linebackers will step up. They have a great ability to fill those gaps, is what they do. When you think you have an opportunity, they do a great job of closing those things off.
Well, not just that. I mean, it's not just the slants. It's also you'll see it frequently on tape. I'm sure it showed up for you, Brian. You'll see, Quentin Jefferson can be in one spot here, and then it's a second before the snap, and he slides over, and he just moves.
Stem. They call that stimming. Yeah.
They will. Yeah. They'll hit you with that pretty frequently, where there's a lot of last second shifts, some changing some stuff around. They like to throw in. You'll see it again on tape where they don't blitz very much. It's pretty much just their front 4, and
that's all it is. Yeah,
and they're comfortable, and they have success doing it. But there are times where they're showing you 4, and it ends up being 3, and they'll drop Quentin Jefferson into a zone or Quentin Wood. I mean, they do a lot of just interesting things with that defensive line. It is a really versatile group. You mentioned, and it's a heavy rotation too.
Very heavy. That's the one thing that with Quentin Williams, and they keep him fresh throughout the game because you'll see him in there. You'll see Al Woods in there. They'll find a way to kind of work guys through that lineup.
Yeah, and it's like I said, it's a very talented group. I think that's kind of the nucleus of what they want to do. Kind of everything else pours out from there. One of the guys that I specifically want to talk about, and I know you've given your mea culpa on Terrence Steele now. But one of the things that shows up with John Franklin Myers is the ability to play with power. And that's a guy who, Terrence Steele, his issue at times can be power. But, John Franklin Myers, he is a bully type. He likes to get in the chest, bull rush, walk guys back. He's not a guy who's necessarily trying to finesse to the edge or anything else. That's, I think right now, my biggest concern in the pass protection might be just John Franklin Myers if he uses his power and Terrence Steele has some problems with that. And I'm a big Terrence Steele fan. It's just I don't think Steele's going to be able to kind of push him upfield the same sort of way because he wants to play into your chest.
Yeah, this guy, he went to school at Stephen F. Austin, so he's a kid from Texas. And he's got, I remember him coming out of college, he has that perfect build for like a 3-4 edge rusher when you're talking about 6'4" and 283 pounds. I mean, he's a guy that put on a lot of weight in college. I think it was like 50-something pounds that he put on. And so he's a good-looking player. And, but you can kind of use him in a couple of different spots, and he could be a little bit of a mismatched guy. The thing about him I always liked about him is like how he exploded, off the snap. And the reaction, and he does a great job of playing on the move too. You talk about the power and just lowering your face into the guy and just driving the blocker back into the pocket. But he knows how to play with that kind of that technique. And he's for a guy his size and his length, he's super coordinated. So he's not kind of a clumsy or stumbling around type of a guy. But man, physically he looks the part. He's the ideal candidate to the kind of guy you put him out there and you just say, okay, go get that football, because he's got a nose for it. He did in college, and he does now in the NFL. He does a really good job for us, playing with the size and the ability he has.
Yeah, and let's take a look at the secondary really quickly here. Jordan Whitehead, obviously the big star from the other night, the 3-interception game. You've got Sauce Gardner, who is strictly pretty much a left side player. Like he's staying on the left side of the formation. There's not a lot of like traveling with Sauce Gardner.
Right.
But while everybody knows Sauce and talks about Sauce, DJ Reed is really good. The other corner there.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
That's a guy that I think is, DJ Reed is really good. Michael Carter's the nickel. If you want to talk about a place to maybe take advantage of some things, if they are set on Lamb and Carter, and that's the matchup that you get inside, that might be the one to exploit. Because there's not a lot of weaknesses here. It is a very patient, good tackling, play under control, very disciplined defense. And so you're not going to find a lot of holes, but that might be one where you can find a real advantage.
Yeah, I think you're right about that, Bob. I mean, to me, the DJ Reed is by far the best player that I thought. I know Sauce Gardner is what he is, but when you talk about complete player, ability to cover, ability to tackle, there's some things about Sauce Gardner that I kind of feel like that you could maybe take advantage of. But I'll tell you that DJ Reed is a guy that does a really, really, really good job when it comes to not only covering, but then also when the ball comes his direction, getting his guy on the ground. He is a physical player, and but both these guys are known as really, really good cover guys. And you mentioned Whitehead. I think Whitehead's a right player at the right time type of a guy. He was in position a couple of different times. The third interception I thought was a really, really good one.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I would. I mean, like I said, you need to, with these guys, you need to kind of be careful, if you're Dak Prescott, of making sure that when you're throwing the football, that you are absolutely sure where you need to go.
I think there's a lot of areas where the Cowboys are not going to be able to necessarily just impose their will offensively. So when you take a look at these different things that the Cowboys are trying to accomplish now with this new West Coast scheme and the ways that they want to run the ball and do different things, I think that it's important to remember that this is going to be really the first opportunity for the Cowboys to get this offense into place and to run this offense the way that they want to. Because, that first game against the Giants, they get up so big so early. That was a big boost for them. And when you look at the fact that, it was a slick surface, you were dealing with the rain, I think they felt like they didn't need to necessarily put everything out there. And that they were still trying to fight for, or that they were still trying to conceal some things and focus on, just getting through that game, maintaining the lead, doing those sorts of things that they needed to do there. Because I think that when you look at the need to establish their offense, they didn't feel like that was a priority over just maintaining the game, letting the defense win it for you against the Giants. So there's still a lot of rust to knock off. There's still a lot of concepts that they probably want to get into place, that they want to work with. And so this will be the first time. It'll kind of be the debut for the offense in this game against the Jets. And so it's a hell of an opportunity, or it's a hell of a challenge having to go up against this defense and kind of debut your scheme here. But that's essentially what the Cowboys are going to have to do. And the Jets are going to make it very, very difficult on them.
Yeah, I think this is a really, really good matchup. And I mean a good matchup in a way, if you like offensive football, the Cowboys with the weapons that they have. But what the Jets can do. You have to be able to block their front. You have to be able to find a way. I mentioned this about the corners and the secondary here for the Jets. If Dak is indecisive on where he needs to go with this ball, if there's any bit of hesitation or any bit of I'm not sure, and you just throw it and hope that maybe this is going to work out, this group will make you pay. Dallas is going to have to find ways. These guys play off coverage. They play press coverage. They're very capable of doing a lot of different things. They're comfortable with the way they play. Dak will not be as careless as Josh Allen was with the football. I promise you he won't be that careless. But you have to make sure these routes, if you're going to throw a route, you have to make sure that you're accurate with the ball, because any type of if the ball's off or you're in a situation where you're really not sure, these guys will make you pay. That they're that good. I'm going to say I will go through the season and there's some secondaries that will challenge you. This will probably at the end of the day, when you get down to, well, what's one of the best secondaries you played against this year? The New York Jets will be one of those secondaries.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, you might get to the end of the season and say this is the best defense you played this year. They're really, really good. You are listening to the Love of the Star podcast. The Love of the Star is an Odyssey podcast. You can find it on the Odyssey app or wherever you get your podcasts. All right, Brian, it is now time for our Dean Julia Love of the Star mailbag. So let's kick around some of these questions. First one here from David Richardson. How did Damone Clark fare on Sunday night? I didn't notice him that much. Defense was very, very dominant on Sunday night. Yeah. I thought one of the areas one of the players who could have been better was Damone Clark.
I thought so too. The penalty early in the game might have affected him. Remember, he got the unnecessary roughing penalty. The one thing about Damone Clark is he's going to run sideline to sideline. He's going to play downhill. The Giants really weren't in a situation where they were running the football. They ran the football the first drive, and he was on the field for that. And they as a group, they weren't very good. So Damone Clark,
he had a bad read on that first.
He sure did. He sure did. And so, fortunate for the Cowboys though that it just turned into a game of rushing the passer, and they were up. So the linebackers, but Damone Clark, it probably wasn't one of his best efforts.
No, and they're going to need him this week.
He's going
to have to be much better. Reading his keys, his run fits are going to need to be better. He needs to see it faster, I think, is one of the things.
I agree.
There's a lot of times where I think he's still processing and he starts guessing a little bit.
I agree with you.
And that's where he can get himself into some trouble, but they really need him this week in this game. All right, next question here from Daniel. How do you think they attack the Jets defense, considering they didn't need to run many offensive plays to get in a rhythm against the Giants? I mean, schematically, I think this is a game where the Cowboys would, in all likelihood, like to, try some of this stuff with the run. They'll try and fit into some of these gaps that you talk about when they show these wide fronts. We'll see how much that works. We referenced it a little bit, a few minutes ago. I think your best opportunity here is to just get CeeDee Lamb the right matchup in the nickel. Or right there in the slot. I think that's the best shot.
Yeah, that is a good, and find a way. And by the way, I got some word about it's what Cooks is dealing with is just knee soreness. No, it's nothing. It doesn't sound like anything major. It's just knee soreness is what I had somebody reach out to me and tell me that. So that's what he's dealing with right now. Hopefully he'll be able to practice tomorrow. Maybe he'll need another day, but it's just the soreness right now. Yeah, we talked about it earlier. How do you attack the wide nine? You feel like you see those big gaps and stuff. If you if you secure down linemen, and it's a little bit harder to do because when you do get shoulder to shoulder or hip to hip, and you try and you're moving, these linemen are already wide. So all of a sudden you're moving guys, but then the linebackers running through, you don't get off in time. Sometimes this wide alignment, you just have to almost single block and push the guy out or push the guy down inside and then get up on the second level, because when defenses are a little bit tighter with their splits, then you're able to kind of get hip to hip and then push that down lineman into the linebacker. So I have a feeling the running game is going to be about trying to attack a little bit more on the edges. But I'll tell you what, man, they've got some guys, and I mean, I didn't even mention this, our kid from Florida State that they drafted, Jermaine Johnson. Jermaine Johnson is playing right now for Carl Lawson. Carl Lawson's probably going to play in this game. He had a back issue, but they didn't want to. They didn't want to expose him to 2-game short week. So they picked this Dallas game. I have a feeling you're going to see Carl Lawson had 7 sacks last, but with Jermaine Jones, this is going to be a Jermaine Johnson, right? I'm sorry.
Yep,
Jermaine Johnson.
Yep.
Yeah, Jermaine Johnson. Sorry, I said Jermaine Jones. Jermaine Johnson. This is where he played, and he's got some of those traits like what you see with Tank. Hand down, stand up, run at him, hard to get the edge, got length to him, will extend tackles for loss. He's a guy that can definitely play, but get you to have to play behind the line of scrimmage. Keep the outside shoulder free. So yeah, they've got some guys that it's kind of hard to run the ball at, but I think you're going to have to. I mean, unless you want to sit there and play, okay, we're going to block four-man rush all day, and then try and take our chances dealing with some corners and safeties that actually know how to cover on the back end.
Yeah. No, I think that's dead on. Next question here from Mills. I expect the Jets to go run heavy on Sunday. Could you see the D-line go extra heavy with Hankins and Mozzie both inside? How do you think they will address run-heavy offenses this week and in the future? I don't think they want to have Mozzie and Hankins out there routinely for extended periods of time. I do think that they believe in Mozzie as an athlete, that if he needed to get upfield and play some sort of 3 technique type of thing in a spot, maybe. But those are 2-1 techniques. I think that.
Yeah, I'm not taking Osa off the field. I'm sorry. I mean,
no,
Osa,
especially after he had a career.
Yes,
game.
I mean, if you want to play, and Hankins did a good job of getting up the field too, but disruptive Osa. Disruptive beating a Tomlinson block and getting in the backfield and, before the ball's handed. Listen, big inside guys, teams can get around playing against big inside guys. How do you do that? You run the ball to the edge, toss, crack, sweep, zone play, stuff like that. Having big inside guys doesn't necessarily give you the blueprint to stopping the run consistently, especially if somebody, what are teams when they play Vita Vea and people like that? They don't run the ball at Vita Vea. They play the edges is what they do. They double a guy and then they'll play the edge. So I'm not taking Osa off the field because I need him attacking that shoulder and getting in the backfield and being disrupted that way. And Hankins, I told you, Hankins played well the other day. Hankins is showing like he's got a lot more agility, maybe lost some weight along the way here, but he looks more fit and able to sustain and make plays and not get tired and get wore down. But I don't think necessarily having 2 big 1 techniques is controlling the running game, because teams will figure out how to get the ball to the outside.
And look, I'll say this. We talked about Hankins. We talked about Osa. We gave those guys a lot of praise on Monday. I will say, Brian, I don't know how you felt. Going back and watching it, I did think Mozzie played better than I was expecting.
Yep.
I thought that he was okay.
Yep.
And he's already had a Tristan Hill for me, for anybody who's having a panic about that. Yep. All right, Brian, last question here, and it's just kind of a fun one. It's from Ron. And Ron says, okay, it's kind of silly, but is there any chance we might see Micah run the ball once or twice this year? That would be a blast. Micah, who was a stud running back in high school and has routinely argued to get a couple snaps on offense. Would you think we might eventually get that, a snap or 2 for Micah? Or is that just, nope, that asset's too important, we're not exposing him?
I don't. I mean, We're sitting there having discussions of how to get Deuce Vaughn more opportunities, right? Every once in a while. So I don't think so.
You're out on it. You don't.
No, I'd love to see it. But I also don't want to see Micah get tackled and take an unnecessary shot in the shoulder or get one in the ribs or have to deal with.
Let him return a kick,
God,
Brian.
Jeez, Bobby, shut up. Shut up.
That's a perfect way to end this one.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us here on The Love of the Star. We will have one more episode for you this week. We'll have picks and hopefully a good handle on who will be active and inactive for this one against the Jets. For Brian Broaddus, I am Bobby Belt. We will talk to you guys again next time. Hey, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more content like this. If you want to see more of our videos, be sure to check out our playlist and let us know what you think in the comments below. Also, don't forget to follow us on social media to stay up to date on our latest updates. Links are in the description. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.